Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show. As you can see, I am your host, Chris. Insert clever nickname here, Condit. I am flying solo because Alex is on assignment. So please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave comments on all the places down here where I am pointing on the video. If you're not watching me on YouTube, watch us on YouTube, please. All the popular places where we are available. Like, comment, subscribe, review, all those things for us, please and thank you. And if you leave us a comment, we might shout you out in the next podcast episode. So thanks again for your support, folks. And as I said, Alex is on assignment, so it's going to be a pretty quick pod because I am depressed and I really don't feel like talking about this game very much. But we'll get through it. But let's start off by talking about the red-hot Cleveland Guardians. I know it's an Indians shirt. Don't get weird in the comments if this thing goes and gets aggregated. I don't care about the name change. Don't make this a thing. And the red-hot Cleveland Browns who won today. And Alex right now, when he turns this on, is going to be freaking out because I just made these terrible jokes. Now, let's get to the depressing item of the day. Aston Villa won. Sunderland won. And folks, guys, gals, I'm not going to do a traditional breakdown here like Alex and I often do, where we go phase by phase by phase of the game and talk about each thing, because I hope this is rock bottom. If this is not rock bottom, I am terrified to think where rock bottom might be, because Aston Villa just drew at Sunderland, a team that is just back up into the Premier League, against 10 men for almost an hour, over an hour of actual game time because of added time. And Villa could not see out the win. And probably, if we're being honest with ourselves, which I like to think we are here on this podcast, I think it was a fortunate result for Villa that they were even able to get one. We are a Matty Cash wonder goal away from dropping all 3 points against 10-man Sunderland. Think about that, guys, gals. I'm running out of ways to talk about this team in any kind of positive manner. It was terrible today. Let's just go through some facts really quick. Aston Villa created 0.66 XG against 10-man Sunderland and were outplayed more or less from the start. In my opinion, Aston Villa was second best from minute 1 to minute 90 today. If anybody disagrees, I'd love to hear how and why you feel that way. Even when Villa had a bunch of possession, which they did early in the game, again, they never really looked a threat. And I don't know how we can change this. There have to be tactical changes. Alex and I have talked about it. There have to be personnel changes, because right now there's just no threat going forward at all from this team. And it's very concerning to see. And I don't understand it, because the players, while they're not, it's not the team that we would ultimately love to have and put together because of the financial restrictions that Villa are under. So I understand that. But it's not like this is just a bunch of garbage players that nobody wanted. I can't figure this out. And I can't figure out how a collection like this that features Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins in particular up top cannot even threaten goal. It's mind-boggling, frankly, and very frustrating to me. And you can probably hear the frustration in my voice right now. Like I said earlier, 10-man Sunderland, and without a Matty Cash wonder goal, which we all had, as Aston Villa's first Premier League goal, right? Matty Cash to the top corner, wonder goal. Without that, we drop all 3 points. Aston Villa drops all 3 points to Sunderland. This is bad. This is very bad, folks. I can't say it any other way. Morgan Rogers had another stinker of a ball game. And this one to me doesn't make a lot of sense, because when we saw him in the international break, he played very well for England. So we were wondering at early in the season if maybe he was just bedding in, maybe he just, wasn't quite physically fit yet for the season. But then we see him play well for England. And now as soon as he puts the Villa shirt back on, he has another terrible game. And I've got to shout out Luke Robinson on Twitter. Morgan Rogers right now is losing the ball 17.6 times per 90 for Aston Villa. As the player that is meant to largely be the engine going forward in attack, that is unacceptable and can't happen. And I think, in my opinion, obviously this is right now, it's my podcast. I have nobody to stop me. And Alex will be coming back soon because he doesn't want me to go completely off the rails here. But in my opinion, Morgan Rogers' struggle is the starting point of all the issues offensively in attack for Villa. If he can get right, I think the rest of the attack will follow. But right now, he just looks miles off of it, and I don't know why. I know that some of the upheaval in the offseason and around the transfer market seems to have had an effect on some of the players. There was the report from Jacob Tanswell in The Athletic that hung over the locker room. But without Morgan Rogers playing reasonably well, this team, forget about finishing in Europe. This team won't finish mid-table if Morgan Rogers can't get it together. So in my view, that's the first thing that needs to get corrected or fixed. Morgan Rogers has to go back to being Morgan Rogers that we all know and love from his time at Aston Villa. On Isidor's goal, the goal that leveled it, I know that there's been a lot of talk on this, and I tend to agree with most of the Villa Twitter and Villa social media right now that's talking about this. Ball watching. We had 9 players just standing there, ball watching that entire goal. Ezri Konsa, you have been talked about on this podcast by both Alex and myself as being one of the premier defenders in the English Premier League, but not on that goal you weren't. I have no idea where he was going or what he was doing. I think he got caught out. I think he was ball watching, and it was a nice finish from Isidore, and honestly, a goal that probably should have been prevented with just better defending. Emi Martinez, there was nothing he could do about it. It was really, really poor from Aston Villa. But that is just that if that isn't the day in a nutshell and the season so far in a nutshell, I don't know what is. But that really poor goal to concede, and pretty much everybody deserves a little bit of blame for that one on the defensive side of the ball. Unai Emery came out in the post-match interview, and called some players lazy. Didn't mention anybody by name, but said that the team was lazy. So now we're starting to see some frustration boil over to the boss. I think it's extremely rare, and I'm trying to think of an instance where he's ever called out his players directly in the media before. So if this isn't rock bottom, I am terrified to think of what is. So my hope is that those comments light a fire under some of the Aston Villa players, because that result today is unacceptable. And all credit to Sunderland. They outplayed Aston Villa like I said, from start to finish. But if Aston Villa see themselves as a European contender, then that result cannot happen, and these results that we've seen so far this season cannot continue to happen. Villa had one of the easiest opening runs in the league, and Aston Villa are sitting in relegation places right now. This is wildly different than we anticipated it to be. And I think Alex and I were relatively realistic that it might be a little bit of a struggle for Villa with new players betting in, but I don't think either of us had it going this badly, because right now we are Villa don't look a threat at all going forward. We still had a bunch of the ball, 52% or 53% possession, and just nothing created against a team. Again, I hate that I'm repeating myself here, but against a team that was playing with 10 men, Villa couldn't create. Villa got 2 shots on target all game. And I'm sorry, I said 52% possession. I actually meant 72% possession. That was a slip of the tongue there on my part. So 72% possession, 2 shots on target. That type of performance will lose you every single game against 10 men, or at least not lose. You'll drop the points. How do you only get 2 shots on target? And again, one of them was just a terrific goal from Matty Cash that was probably worth about 0.05 XG, if we're being honest. So unacceptable performance all around. So where do we go from here, guys? I wish I had an answer. Alex and I have talked about it at length in previous podcasts, so please go back and take a look at those. There are some tactical things I think that Emery can do. I think you're going to have to start seeing more of Sancho, and I don't know. Gasson had a lot of time today at the wing, and he was pretty ineffective. I'm pretty down, folks. I don't know where Villa go from here. But like I said, the first issue that needs to be fixed and rectified is Morgan Rogers' play. And I feel badly calling out anybody individually because it's not like everybody else was great. But I think that as Rogers goes, so goes this attack. And if we can get him right, we're going to find ourselves in a better position. So that's enough of me ranting into the wind. But I will like to point out here that what's next for Villa? Europa League. Can't wait. Oh, boy. Team looks so good right now, and it's time to go play a familiar opponent in Bologna. So that's Thursday. Depending on Alex's availability, we'll have a pod out later this week. If Alex is unavailable, I may call on one of my guest hosts that has sat in on this podcast before. But we'll try and get a pod out probably on Tuesday or Wednesday heading into the Bologna game. But a really tough day. And I know last week I mentioned that if things continue to go this way, that you might see me have a mental breakdown, but that is postponed for at least one more week because your Cleveland Browns beat the Green Bay Packers today. #dog pound. And obviously the Cleveland Guardians are red hot. So that's at least keeping me afloat, but I still need Aston Villa to really pick it up here, guys. Otherwise, it's going to be a long fall and winter, and nobody wants to see me have a mental breakdown on YouTube. Folks, thanks for listening. I appreciate it, and I know I can speak for Alex when I say we appreciate your support. Once again, please like, subscribe, review, leave comments, and that leads me to shouting out our listener today, or viewer today, I should say. New viewer, a new subscriber, SL Campbell 7872. He's from Britain, so thanks again for listening from across the pond. And he asked why Alex and I support Villa, and if we've been talking to Tom Hanks. I would love to speak with Tom Hanks, but no. Alex mentioned it in the comments, but Alex Grew up a Villa fan when Villa signed Juan Pablo Angel, and because of his Colombian heritage. And I am obviously a huge Browns fan. And at the time that I adopted the Villa, Randy Lerner was the owner, so it seemed to make sense to root for the Cleveland Browns and Aston Villa, since they were both owned by the same guy. So that's how we ended up being Browns fans. That's how we ended up being Villa fans. And so far, it's been a great ride up until now, except when we were in the championship. But we're here and depressed, and we'll see you later on this week. Until then, up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.